Hi. So today I just want to do a very general overview of the female reproductive anatomy. Very general. So let's begin. So here presented is a lateral view of the female reproductive system. Contains the uterus, which is a thick muscle. It's a site of implantation of sperm, where the embryo grows and develops over time during pregnancy. And then continuing on, here's the cervix. The cervix is at the end of the uterus and it connects to the vaginal wall, or connects to the vagina. The cervix consists of external and internal os, which is the opening from the vagina to the cervix. It also contains something called the fornix. It's kind of hard to see on this since it's a 2D picture and it's a lateral view, but it is a circular shape and works as a vault for the uterus, which will be explained in detail further on. And then here's the clitoris. The clitoris is equivalent to the penis. Its main purpose is for pleasure during sexual arousal or intercourse. And then here's the vagina, mentioned earlier. It's an organ that's also a very thick muscle, or it contains a thick muscular wall, and its main function is also for sexual purposes. Here's the anterior view. As you can see that the uterus is a pear shape, and that the cervix here is more of a circular shape. And in between that, what we have is a broad ligament, which plays a huge role in pregnancy. So it actually contains several other ligaments. However, the general area is just a broad ligament. So, yeah. And its function is to help carry the expected child, considering the extra 10 pounds of baby and amniotic sac and so forth, and the physics of gravity. It helps keep the baby inside the uterus because of the gravity. The baby will be weighed down, so the broad ligament, which is attached to the uterosacral ligament, which attaches to the sacrum, is there to help secure the baby in the uterus and to keep it from slipping into the vagina. And in the case it does slip in, it's called a prolapse, which is when the uterus slips into the vaginal canal. It's a pretty unusual condition that causes concern for the carrier and the baby. But yeah. And then here are the ovaries. They're the gonads in the pelvic cavity, supported by a mesovarium extension of the peritoneum that connects the ovaries to the broad ligament. The ovaries are female gonads and secrete female sex hormones such as estrogen and progesterone. And then here's the fimbriae, right here, kind of finger-like projections at the end of the fallopian tube that cover ovaries. They actually help move and carry eggs closer to the oviduct, and once the egg is fertilized, then it'll go into the uterus. And something that isn't pictured here is a hymen. It's a thin membrane that that's like in front of the vaginal entrance. That covers the vaginal entrance, I'm sorry. Some women have this and some don't. But if they do, it normally has perforations that allow secretions and menstrual blood to help exit the body. In the case they do have it and there's no opening for it, it can cause a lot of issues, especially those who start menstruating, because it doesn't allow those secretions to come through, which may cause a lot of health issues. It can be broken with intercourse or during a gyno exam. In the case that it is torn, it could be referred to as popping a cherry. It's a normal process and isn't anything much to worry about because it's just a thin membrane and it'll heal. Here's like the overview of it. So moving on, we have the external female genitalia. There's a glans clitoris, mentioned earlier, which has the same structure of a penis, but it's a lot smaller and it's not as visible. It's normally covered by the lips, which are anatomically called the labia minora and then the labia majora. The minora has a thinner lip and it's closest to the clitoris, whereas the labia majora right here are thicker and fleshier and further away. Yeah. And then moving on, there's a corpus cavernosum right here. It's equivalent to the male corpus cavernous, and it allows blood to flow through, which causes it to erect during sexual arousal. And it's located behind the labia minora. And then here's the vaginal opening. It could be called the introitus, something like that. But yeah, that's the vagina opening. And then here is the Bartholin's gland. It actually helps keeps the lips lubricated and avoids any friction between them. And here's another overview summary of what I just discussed. And then for the internal female reproductive anatomy, there's the rugae, which is inside the vagina. This is what the vagina consists of. It's a textured epithelium, kind of like your stomach or something, and it's surrounded by a thin layer of smooth muscle. And as mentioned earlier, there's the fornix. It contains an external os, which in between ovulation is filled with actually the fornix is here. I'm sorry. The fornix is here. And in between ovulation, it's filled with a thick mucus that prevents sperm to swim through, and it actually prevents bacteria and yeast getting into the uterus. But this mucus also has the ability to thin out, and it allows the sperm in the vagina prior to swim through the uterus. And I say prior because, for example, if you had sex maybe 3 days beforehand and the mucus has thinned up, then you can bring it up, and the sperm can actually live 3 to 5 days in the canal. And if so, it can cause pregnancy. Yeah. And then, here's like another summary of that. Sorry. And then I wanted to focus on the ovaries as well. Contains the cortex, the tissue framework called ovarian stroma. It's also the bulk of the ovary and contains oocytes. And oocyte is with supporting cells is called a follicle. Follicles women are actually born with, and this is the set kind of amount that they have for the rest of their reproductive times. The follicles actually hold immature eggs that still need to develop, and when they grow into a good size, they're ready to be fertilized and released into the uterus, which is the process of ovulation. And another summary, ovaries. The follicles are actually, there's kind of like a level to them. There's the primordial follicle, primary follicle, secondary follicle, and tertiary. But yeah, like I said, this was a very brief overview, like a summary of the female reproductive system, just like a very general topic. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.